What's up, guys? I have something a little bit different planned for y'all today.
Also, if you want to pick up any new Xbox gear or maybe buy a Series X or S console for yourself, I have the links down in the description below.
So this whole video started after I ordered a bunch of stuff on Wish and tried to trick it out. And you know, in true Wish fashion, some of it was trash, absolute garbage, like this Master Chief sticker that I slapped on this Xbox controller. It's just like, what is this? Like, what is the separation? You can barely see his face. It looks terrible. I also applied it on there terribly. Like, there's a bunch of bubbles on there. Yeah, some of it was trash, but some of it was kind of interesting. I got a really cool stand to place my Xbox on that had also a charging dock attached to it that also had a place where I could stick my physical game copies on the side. And I also got this little thing right here. This looks very, very similar to a Seagate expandable storage card. But actually you can take this apart, put your own SSD into this, and theoretically make your own expandable storage. Now this stood out to me because if you've been keeping up with expandable storage news on the Xbox front, you will know that there's only one option for expandable storage that you can play games directly off of it. And that is the Seagate expandable storage SSD. It's proprietary right now, which means that they're the only ones that can make them for Xbox. There's no other competition, which allows them to do whatever they want with the price. And so that has left a lot of Xbox gamers frustrated because they're saying, man, I have to pay $240 just to get expandable storage onto my Xbox. If I want to go up to 2 terabytes, it's more than a Series S, it's $400. So obviously with all that being said, this was very, very interesting to me. What if instead of going out and buying an expensive Seagate card, you can make your own? You can order this on Wish for $20, this adapter right here. Obviously that all sounds good in theory, but very soon you're gonna see that a lot of that, all that wishful thinking, it falls off the rails pretty quickly once you see what's actually involved in making one of these. So the first drive that I tried in this thing, in that past video, that wish.com video, didn't work, was a 64 gigabyte flash storage device that I took out of a Steam Deck, which is not even an SSD, and obviously it didn't work. So I'm gonna see what I need to do in order to get it to work. I have a couple of things with me. I have an SSD right here that has a specific format that is needed to communicate with the Xbox motherboard. So I did some research and I found this drive. So this is a WD Blue. It's 512 gigabytes and it has the specific firmware that your Xbox Series X looks for when you plug in a Seagate card. So in theory, this should work when I put this drive into this adapter and then plug it into my Xbox Series X. We'll see if that actually works in practice. And just in case, I also have this adapter that will allow me to format this SSD if I need to. I'm not so sure if I'm gonna need this. This is just something I got off of Amazon. I'll have the link down in the description below if you want one for yourself. Sources say that I won't need this, but I'm not convinced. So now, I'm gonna take this little tiny screwdriver that I have right here, it's a T8. I'm gonna unscrew this little adapter casing and take out the 64 gigabyte flash storage drive that I took out from that Steam Deck. And as you can see here, on the inside of that casing, there's that drive that I was talking about, the 64 gig. Take that out, set it aside, and now I'm gonna take this little guy right here, the WD Blue. I have this little adapter right here that will go into the casing. I just go and connect it like so. And as you can see, I have that right here connected to the adapter, that drive I was just talking about. I'm gonna put it in the casing right here. Now, if you take a look at this adapter, you'll see that there is a little dip, a little groove right here that will allow you for the card to sit nice and flat and let your memory collapse into that little pocket right here and fit nice and snug. Rather, if you do it upside down, it won't fit into the adapter. So make sure that's face down in that little groovy area. Very technical here. And then once that's done, take it like a little sandwich and boom. And as you can see, the beginnings of your very own Seagate SSD. I'm gonna take my screws, make sure it's nice and snug. I have like the most unsteady hand. I can never be someone who knits or does sewing or something like that. Now that I have a compatible SSD with the right firmware inside here, I'm gonna go ahead and try it again in my Xbox Series X.
All right, so I'm here from the future, Ray. I brought back your custom external SSD here. And,
yeah, who knew that this would have to like span over a couple days? I thought it was going to be so simple. Just get the SSD, put it into this little casing, plug it into my Xbox, and then boom, I have 512 extra gigabytes to play with on my Xbox. But it was not that simple. I couldn't get it to work on the Xbox that I had here. So actually Jimmy stepped in and helped me out a little bit. What were your findings when you went back to the lab? Back to
my apartment. So I took this thing home and I just, right away just put it in my Xbox to see if it would work, and it did not work. So I took it apart and we had to order an adapter on Amazon for it, just to see if we could format it to the right format. This looks like an NVMe drive, but on the back it has a little slot for the drive that's in there. So I took it apart, I put the drive in here, I plugged it into my computer, I formatted the drive, and then I put it all back together. And interestingly, when I put it in my Xbox, at first it did nothing. And I was like, I think this should work. So I took it out, I plugged it back in, and then I took it out and I plugged it back in. And that time it worked. It showed up under my storage menu as 512 gigabytes of extra storage. And I was like, great. I took the Apple TV Plus app from my main SSD on the Xbox Series X and I moved it over to this SSD, and it took 2 seconds. It seemed like everything was working great. I tried to start the app up and I got an error message. It said weak connection. If this keeps happening, contact Xbox.
So weak connection, that is something that we normally associate with some wireless,
like Wi-Fi.
Weak connection to the SSD. What could that mean? I mean, because we have it plugged.
I got to assume it's that thing.
We have the SSD here, and then this adapter thing that goes into the front of the casing right here.
It's got to be the adapter, because I tested the drive in my PC and it works totally fine, right? Like I connected it with this little adapter, I formatted it. I could have just used it as extra storage for my gaming PC if I really wanted to. I mean, that drive is perfect for a Steam Deck as well. You could use like that in the Steam Deck and be upgraded to 512 gigs. And we made sure that this is the exact drive that the Xbox Series X needs. It meets all the speed requirements. It's got the right firmware to be taken in a CF Express slot like this. So it's got to be the adapter, which is kind of a bummer because we could just order a new one. But this one took how long to get here?
A long
Like we ordered it 2 months ago?
2 months ago. Yeah, a long time. But I mean, do you think you would have, any success at all with a smaller game? I mean,
it wouldn't even let me start it. It wouldn't even let me start like an Apple TV app. So either way, is this even worth it? Like, what's the price shakedown here? I don't really know what's going on.
Okay, so let's go through that. Obviously, the appeal it was to me and to many of you out there is the fact that an alternative storage option could exist outside of the Seagate proprietary thing that they got going on was super appealing. But like we said, this thing from wish.com was this little adapter thing was 20 bucks. 20 bucks. So that's good cheap. Good start, right? And then you have this right here, this SSD, 512 gigabytes, has very specific firmware requirements in order to communicate to the Series X. This was 70 bucks? 70, like 80 some change. So it brings the total to, nearly $100. The 512 gigabyte Seagate card is $140. So it represents a total savings of $40 after you wait 2 months to get this little adapter thing from wish.com. Is it really worth it? I'm not sure. Me personally, I would like to just pay the extra $40.
If it worked without me, having to unplug it, plug it back in, like even that step is a little too crazy for me, right? And it was heating up. I noticed that like after I plugged it in the first time, it was registering because the thing was heating up, and then it finally registered and it was like very hot.
The heat dissipation is super questionable because I had it plugged in on that Wish video that I did, and by the time I took it out, man, that thing was steaming. Like literally I had to do one of these things like, ooh, that's hot. So that is questionable as well, especially because you don't want heat melting the SSD that you just bought and specifically for this.
So I think the best option here for people, instead of going through this entire process or even buying this Seagate card, which is just frankly overpriced, it would be to buy a Samsung T7 or T5 if you can find it used. We'll have both linked down in the description. These drives are great. They use USB-C USB-C, but they also can use USB-A, and you can get like a 2 terabyte drive and keep all of your Xbox One and Xbox 360 and Xbox games on that, and then just reserve your 1 terabyte for Series X games.
Yeah, because all of the previous gen games, you can play them directly off the drive, and there's no need to move it from the external storage to your internal storage.
The T7 drives are super versatile. I actually used to keep my entire Steam library on one, and I would play games off of there. I had a 2 terabyte one, and if you really want to get crazy and you want to use one for your Xbox storage and one for PC storage, you can just partition it. You can get a 2 terabyte drive, cut it in half with a partition tool on PC, and then you'll have storage on 1 terabyte, and then you'll have Xbox game storage on the other. I don't think this thing is bad. I think Seagate being the exclusive licensee, the exclusive maker of these is what's bad, because there's zero competition and they can set whatever price they want on it. It's very similar to what Sony did with the PSP and the PS Vita, where instead of just using micro SD, they used mini stick and the PSP's proprietary memory. It's so they can charge you more than they should because they have no actual competition. I know there's actually an adapter now you can get for the PS Vita that allows you to put a micro SD card in it, and then it reads it as a Vita memory card, but that was not around while that console was in the limelight. So I don't know. I just don't like proprietary memory. I just think it's not a great option because the only reason it exists is to charge more for it.
Quality wise, we've messed around with the Seagate drives. They're nice, they're good.
It was a great option while Sony had no other alternative, but when you look at the PS5 and all you have to do is walk to the store and buy an NVMe drive with a heatsink and just pop off the side of your PS5, pop off a little door and put that drive in and you're good to go. It's a little bit more steps than just plugging in the Seagate card, but you're paying so much more for that convenience.
Right, exactly. That might be worth it. In this case, for a 512 gigabyte card, the $100 versus $140 difference, I honestly, me personally, I would just spring for that extra $40, get the Seagate card. But for those of y'all who like a challenge, who like DIY projects, maybe something like this is more appealing to you. But for the average consumer, for the average console player, a big appeal about the consoles is that they're easier hardware-wise to deal with. You spend $500, $300 on the Series S or whatever, and that you don't have to do anything extra. You don't have to update the drivers. You don't have to go and mess with the GPU. You don't have to update, all the different components that you see in these rigs over on the PC side. So I don't see this as being a viable option, honestly, for the console gaming audience.